Hey, what's up, guys? BSG Trek Fan 88 here again. Sorry for being so dark. I just have my light on over in the corner there. I couldn't let tonight go without talking about something else besides the hurricane and From the Earth to the Moon. I've been kind of, after watching The Walking Dead with a friend of mine, I kind of searched on YouTube and was kind of looking at old Deep Space Nine behind-the-scenes footage, and more importantly, interviews with the cast and the crew. Now, Deep Space Nine is one of my favorite shows. It's up there, probably in my top 5, with The West Wing, Battlestar Galactica, and then Deep Space Nine. If I could put them all in the same place, I would. But I'm not here to talk about DS9. I'm not here to talk about The West Wing, Battlestar Galactica. One of the things that I watched was a video on Worf and Michael Dorn, and his thoughts on the character, and Steven's thoughts on the character, and just talking about Worf. But one of the things that they did was they used the Star Trek First Contact score, the soundtrack by Jerry Goldsmith, which is why I'm making this really quick video here. One of my favorite soundtracks that I own out of the 135 gigabytes of music that I own, Star Trek First Contact soundtrack is one of the greatest examples of a soundtrack that is done 100% correct. It has action, it has suspense, it has touching moments. If you just simply watch the movie The First Contact, Star Trek The First Contact, where the Vulcans come down and make first contact with humans, the score that Jerry Goldsmith wrote and created for us is absolutely amazing. If you really think about it, if you're a diehard Trekkie or just someone who knows the series and the film, First Contact is not just about the movie itself. It's kind of about Star Trek. If the Borg succeeded, and I know I'm kind of going off into a nerd rant right now, but if the Borg succeeded, what we know of as Star Trek would not have happened, right? The Borg stopped First Contact from happening. They conquered the Earth, assimilate it, and that's it. There's no Kirk, there's no Picard, there's no Archer, there's no Janeway, there's no Cisco, nothing. So, excuse me. So when you watch this film, you have Picard's struggle with, the Borg. He was assimilated at one point. He personally has basically killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Starfleet personnel. And that's shit that haunts a man for life. But the score to DS9, sorry, not DS9, to First Contact, is, I think, the most unique out of all of the films. Wrath of Khan, Insurrection. The only other score that I can really think of that really stands out, I'm kind of biased because I'm a Star Trek fan and I collect soundtracks, and not every score, for instance, I personally do not like the score to The Voyage Home. I love James Horner. I love his work on Titanic. I love his work on Avatar and many other films, but for for Voyage Home, it just didn't. When it comes to Star Trek, it just didn't work. It's a good score, it's a good soundtrack, but when you listen to it, you do not think Star Trek, unless you hear the famous cues or whatever. But where the hell was I going with this? With First Contact, Jerry Goldsmith, who again is responsible basically for what we know of as the Star Trek theme, he incorporates little bits and pieces into the score. For instance, in First Contact, when Worf is beamed over from the Defiant during the first the engagement with the Borg, in the score, it transfers to the Klingon battle theme for a second, and it does so again later on in the film. And then, of course, you have obviously the main theme where Vulcans make First Contact. Oh yeah, that's what I was getting at. To basically have this film to be scored, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of work. Excuse me. But I guess in the end, First Contact to me, the score is very big. Its presence is known. You listen to some soundtracks, you go, okay, this is a good soundtrack, but, you know, it doesn't stick with you. You know, like, to me, there's a lot... Jesus, I could go on forever, but there's a lot of soundtracks that stick with me personally. But First Contact, when you listen to it, it's so grand and so epic. But again, it also lends to what's happening on screen. Because a great soundtrack will stand apart on its own. A good soundtrack will be great on its own, but better with or while watching what it scored with. You know, like watching the scene of the score. First Contact is great. It can stand alone on its own. It can stand alone. I don't know, I forgot to talk about this real quick. What's your favorite score? What's your favorite soundtrack? To me, if you were to look at my iTunes, literally, you can message me right now, comment in the doobly-doo below. Oh, do you have this soundtrack? Probably. Like 80% of my, not 80%, that's high. Probably out of my 130 gigabytes and change of audio / music that I have in iTunes, probably a good 50% of it is soundtracks. I can't even tell you where to begin. Name a movie, put it in the comments below. I probably have it. Or at least a song from the soundtrack, because I don't really... Some albums I just have one song. I've listened to the whole thing. I may have purchased or downloaded or gotten the whole soundtrack and listened to it and said, yeah, I only really need these 2 songs. Kind of like the Jaws 2 soundtrack. I really only need, or wanted for that matter, 2 songs. But anyway, this is BSG Trekman 88 here. Hopefully you see me tomorrow or the day after the hurricane. We'll see. Have a good night.